Welcome to episode 3. In this episode of Decolonise Me, we're talking about humanitarian aid and development. We're going to be looking at it from a history point of view. So where does it come from? The concepts associated with the different ways of understanding humanitarian aid and development. We're also going to be looking at how it's applied and how it's been challenged by different perspectives, including neoliberalism and capitalism that comes from that. And then we're going to be looking at different case studies and examples of humanitarian aid and development in different contexts.
Yes, in this discussion, because we were looking at different things that came out from different parts of the world, not only the global north, we also are introduced to the concept of unfailure by Dr. Ihab Shalbak. So I think that's very exciting. And of course, we end every episode with a challenge. And for the challenge today, we were asked about our idea of unfailure.
And Happy gets very passionate.
Yeah, and competitive, as always.
Yes, as per.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Decolonise Me. We are going to be talking about humanitarian aid today, and we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Ihab Shalbak, and I'm also joined by my co-host, Jioji. And I remember I forgot to introduce myself in the last few episodes, so my name is Happy. That's
Hi.
it. Yeah.
Hi, Happy. Hello, friends.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am excited to be here.
We are so excited that you're here.
Yes.
Can we also ask for a bit more information about your background, who you are, as part of your intro, please?
Look, that's a very good question to start with. As I mentioned, we had a conversation before. I was at a forum yesterday and I was talking about theory. And my talk was about the starting point and the standpoint, the relationship between them. So to start with, my name is Ihab Shalbak. I was born in Palestine and I moved to Australia a quarter of a century ago now. So I work on human rights, social justice, and on the production of knowledge. I'm interested on how different institutional settings produce different types of knowledge.
Amazing. I'm anticipating that this is going to be a very rich conversation.
Yes.
So let's
I'm so
get
excited.
into it.
Yeah.
Likewise. So there's 3 parts. Three parts to our conversation. The first one is where we're going to deconstruct, where we're going to understand the topic area and what's happening. How do we understand that topic area? The second part of our conversation is to decolonize. How do we see this differently? How do we understand it from a diverse perspective? And then the third part of our conversation is to disrupt, where we're going to be given a challenge by our
surprise challenge.
Surprise challenge.
So we don't know it yet.
That's right. And we're then going to respond as part of our shared conversation. So let's get into it.
Yes. So I guess to start, I'd like to know about the different, I suppose, what is the privileged perspective, or what are the mainstream narratives around humanitarian aid currently that we have?
Okay, I'll go back to starting points.
Yes.
Okay, and first of all, we are talking about 2 things. We have a phrase, 3 words: humanitarian aid, development aid. So humanitarianism goes back in its modern sense to the late 19th century. Essentially, it is the main institution that we know of a humanitarian institution is the Red Cross. And then in our own time, we became very familiar with Oxfam, organizations like Doctors Without Borders. So essentially, humanitarianism is a politics of suffering. It is dealing with atrocities. It is about interventions to alleviate suffering. So it started in the, let's say, 19th century, and it evolved and developed both in terms of concepts and institutions. But it is largely based in the global north. Yeah. Now, development is something emerged in the mid 20th century. Yeah. It has a relationship to the process of decolonization and the formation of the anti-colonial movement, establishing states and gaining independence. So you could say, okay, and this is a contradiction possibly, that one humanitarianism is about the politics of suffering. Development, as it emerged in the 1950s, 60s, and evolved in the 70s, it is a politics of flourishing. So and how the politics of suffering and flourishing came together, they actually came together quite recently. You could say they came together in the way that we know them. In the late 70s, they became just mainstreamed in the 90s after the end of the Cold War. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there is a lot of tension and contradictions in these two forms of politics. You could say that humanitarianism always is about being benevolent and about the victims. Development, at least in one or two of its iterations, was related to demanding a global equality and status.
So can I ask, that's so fascinating, this idea of the politics of suffering.
Yeah.
And then is the politics of flourishing. So is it seen from a binary point of view that you're either suffering or flourishing and nothing in between? Is that where the tension lies as well?
I would not say, okay, just the binary, but there are a lot of binary things that frame the context. Mm-hmm. So let's say, okay, again, the development itself also operate in a binary understanding of relationships. So development, so often we talk about developed country and developing country. Mm-hmm. And the idea that developing country have to catch up with the developed country. So there are a series of binary constructs that operating at different levels. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it depends really on the actors who are operationalizing these binary contracts.
Yeah. And I guess also who gets to define it. How do we define suffering? How do we define development? How do we define, who's in power and who's not, and who's helping and who's not? So I think that's also what I'd like to explore. Like, what are the different kind of narratives surrounding that? What are the assumptions made about the world when we operate in this space of development?
Okay, look, this is again a fascinating question. Let me start by, possibly think, and this is just a little bit reductionist. We could have periods of development by decades. So you could say from the 1950s, 1960s, the idea was the growth base. It is about the economic growth. Okay, just these new countries, they need to put their act together and achieve economic growth. It did not happen, and the newly independent countries start facing internal and external problems. The ideas became about basic needs, how to deal with education, health. Part of what the newly independent countries, the developing world, or at that time used to be called the third world before the global south, they tried to establish a new global economic system. They call it the new international economic order, and proposed a solution at the United Nations General Assembly. And because the United Nations General Assembly from the 1960s to the 1970s became largely dominated by former colonized countries, they passed this resolution. And the idea for the new international economic order, is by reestablishing the trade relationship between the global north and the global south. This might also lead to ability to fund the welfare provisions. At this time, we came, this is the 1970s, early 80s. This is the same time that neoliberalism emerged. And you could say neoliberalism in relation to the global south was reaction to this project. So to start with, so the new economic international order had the General Assembly as its main institutions. They established a number of United Nations institutions to oversee development. And immediately in the late 1970s, 1980s, we have the structural adjustment in which development became, trade liberalization, removal of government's deficits, sell your assets. So here, development in the 1980s colored by the language and the practice of neoliberalism. In the 1990s, we have this concept of human capital emerging, and again, it emerged from the neoliberal language. It is about responsibilizing local communities. For instance, we have this notion of resilience. This is related to this. Now, by the year 2000, and let's say just 2008, when we have the global financial crisis, it is very clear that the neoliberal model under stress. So we have the Millennium Development Goals, which start to be multidimensional. So if I want to give like a more detailed, you could say we started in the 1950s, 60s with linear definition of development. It is economic growth. Then again in the 1970s, linear definition, basic needs. Later we moved to more complex definition, is social and economic growth, but together. After in the 1990s, try to put social, human, and economic growth. And then it became more complex with the involvement of more actors trying to say, look, we want to do more things. We want to do things about, for instance, can't remember the name of the theorist who said development is about freedom. So it is about the conditions of achieving freedom.
I feel schooled.
I know. We're gonna have a quiz later.
Totally. So I hope you're paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm loving all of this because for me, it helps me to make it make sense, especially about how we've moved from this idea that we should be creating a world that is fair and just for everybody. Because that was the idea of, bringing people together and creating these particular trade relationships. But then, as you said, with the marketization and capitalism and the reliance on all the other stuff that goes with neoliberalism, it moved away from the human element to more, again, money and finance and economic, as opposed to the human element associated with development and creating a fair and just society. Yeah.
And also seeing how that process evolved through the decades is what you were saying.
Totally. I think we should now go to our second part of our conversation, which is now to decolonize the way in which we understand humanitarian aid. Let's go there.
Yeah.
How
We're going there.
We're going there.
We're going there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. How can we see humanitarian aid from a different point of view? If we were to consider it from even a localized or even from an indigenous point of view, how can we perceive that particular area of the world?
Look, again, to go back to what I was talking about yesterday, I talked about a notion by South African writer called unfailure. And one of the reasons I brought a new international economic order, which completely failed as a project because the global north and neoliberalism said this is not on. So one idea is to look at our ideas, practices, projects, which are not simply because what neoliberalism did and Western dominations to tell us, okay, your culture is failure, your practice is failure, your political projects are failure. So we need to use this concept of unfailure and go to retrieve from former projects that they never materialized their elements. So I wrote an article which is coming out soon.
Oh, I'm hearing a plug.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is great. I'm here for it all.
Called The Political Economy of Liberation. And it tried to go back to this debate in the 1970s about development and how this is linked to liberation. So one way is be able to go and revisit this, the new international economic order, and think about it. It might be irrelevant now, but what is relevant is it is ethos. What try to achieve, to think about what or to put it differently. I'm not sure if you were aware of the work of Adam Getchell. She talks about the project of word making. That the anti-colonial project was about word making, and free of domination. So to go back to this project that we are trying to remake the world free of domination. One space is the new international economic order. Then I will look, at different practices. One thing that we don't know, for instance, that before we had the global south and global north, we had the third world, and we had third world solidarity, and it was political solidarity and ideological ones, very clear. Now, when the global south came and displaced the third world, I said, okay, let's put politics aside and just deal with the questions of developments in terms of growth, economy. However, part of the third world solidarity, Cuba provides the most expansive and extensive medical aid and training globally. So this is what we don't know about. So Cuba provides more than the G8 combined provide in terms of medical aid.
Wow.
I was a number of years in East Timor after the independence of East Timor, and then I found just all the medical staff were speaking Spanish. And why do I speak Spanish? Because two things: Cuba immediately after independence sent nurses and doctors. In addition, they trained the whole medical team of East Timor. Of course, Australia did not do this. So they were trying to sign a contract about oil and gas. So this is one model to think about, and think about it is unfailure. Okay, there was a model. And what is interesting about the Cuban model, that it is not very advanced, because the vast majority of people in the global south, they need primary care. Children, so this is what the vast majority of people need. However, the medical health system in the global north is directed towards an aging population, and different sets of needs. So it is not the needs of the majority of people. So this is one model.
So is it about capacity building? Is that the idea? So understanding the local needs, and then working to respond to the local need based on the local contexts?
Yes. This is precisely, yeah. Okay. Like the Cuban model I'm talking about is more general, but we could understanding this is about a local need, you know, understanding that the local needs of the vast majority of countries in the world is not just not just. Hip replacements or something like this, which is just they need just what they need, immunization, you know, primary care for children, you know. Yeah.
What I see actually that you brought up, well, two things, that concept of failure, the unfailure. So I think I'd like to explore that more and ask you more about that. Like, what are the different examples of like something that the dominant, you know, like the global north would say, oh, that was a failure, and how we've revisited, how if we've sorry, I guess, like, yeah, so what were examples of that, things that we considered to have been failures? And then my other question is about that solidarity between the countries that were all branded as third world countries. Shout out to fellow third world countries. Philippines represent.
Fiji represent.
Yeah, so I think that whole concept of, I didn't know that Cuba had a large footprint in terms of medical aid. We never see that. We never see that in the media, and that to me is like, wow, what? So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, look, I have a colleague, you might know her. Her name's Sonia von Wilgen, and she works on something called biosovereignty, in Indonesia. And so to talk a little bit about this is a project based on agreement officiated by I think the World Health Organization, but essentially is about the transfer of materials from biodiversity materials to labs, researchers in the global north, to do research on, you know. And the idea that we have this universal project of science, you know, that science is for everyone. But the reality is that when these tissues moved from countries, and here case study is Indonesia, to Australia, these tissues go to research companies, who will establish their intellectual rights, patent rights, and sell the products. Just massive amount of money back to the disadvantaged communities and privileged communities.
just like commodified.
Commodified. So what she's trying to do is saying, okay, like there is possibly another economy of reciprocal relationships. And it's still mediated by the states. Not also simple community, because what's happening in Indonesia, with the support of the local community and the local scientists, scientific community, say, no, we need to have different contracts about, okay, if you take this tissue, and she talks really about like just taking shit, and do research, you codify it and make money of it, you know, and you come to sell me back the results. So this one thing is about playing with different notion of bio-sovereignty. This is one model. The other model, there is during the Syrian crisis, there was a project called I think the Southern Response, in which communities in the region responded to the refugee crisis. So, for instance, Palestinian refugees from the refugee camps in Syria who were displaced because of the Syrian conflict found homes in Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon. You know, they established a mutual aid organization, and this enabled them to do things without being compelled to do what the Global North organization wanted them to do. Basically, the main objective for many of Western interventions in relation to the Syrian conflict is to make sure that these refugees do not cross the Mediterranean Sea to end up refugees in Europe. So the humanitarian aid, some would say it was a security measure, but for in the global south, just the people who are the people to people support, it wasn't about this. It is about hosting communities, understanding their problems because these are themselves are refugees. So this is one model, of trying to work between the countries of the global south. I think also I don't have enough materials about. There is a good number of refugees from Venezuela into certain areas of Brazil. And the Brazilian approach, I understand, is completely different from the conversation that we have about refugees here. So there are a lot of models. We go to look for them.
I wanted to ask a question around the role of MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, and now the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs that are now in place from the UN. Point and purpose, are they helpful? And do they take into consideration the local contexts? Because my concern is that, again, they're prescribed from the global north, those that are sitting already in these positions of power and authority, and then we strive to deploy and employ them into developing countries, the global south,
like repackaging it.
And we say if you don't actually comply and or get to this standard or level, then you're not flourishing.
Yes.
So what's your views on those?
Look, maybe we talked, just to go back to my views, we talked more about development, and we dropped humanitarianism to go back, and to establish the link and to come back to answer your question, So humanitarianism in theory is dealing with the humanitarian situation, so this is just like there is a crisis, you go to deal with it, provide foods, and this is coming from anthropologist her name Ilana Friedman, work on the Palestinian refugees. There is one thing to talk about humanitarian situation, another thing to talk about the humanitarian condition in which the suffering is a permanent conditions, and we are talking about this in the context of climate change. So here actually we need to deal with climate change, and the way that we are dealing with in terms of a humanitarian development, rather than dealing with it in more concrete ways. So to go back to your question, so the humanitarian development, and when we hear about the humanitarianism, and like for instance, there is insistence on describing the situation in Gaza as humanitarian, as opposed to political situation. It has moral authority. So the humanitarian is always just a person who come with a certain moral authority. However, this moral authority increasingly is nested in the expert authority. And so we do have a field of practice established around humanitarian aid development. And this field of practice, over time, as many fields of practices, they become self-reproducing machines, self-referential machines. We would, in this case, we'll have a question of accountability. Are they accountable to the local people, or they are accountable to the IMF or the World Bank? A question of government governance a question of understanding local needs.
Mhm,
Yeah. So this is the problem. So you have this fantastic set of indicators everywhere you go in the system, the global system. And you look at them, that's just fantastic. How these indicators are responding or representing the local circumstances, it is not clear. But to go back about examples and a challenge of examples, Oxfam is one of the major organization in this space. In the past few years, developed an internal project, to try to think development beyond neoliberalism. Yeah. And what they are doing, they are bringing their staff from different countries, to read a great amount of work that people like us do, to think about how we could deliver something that resonates with people, which is not driven by the expert knowledge, not driven by the global north imperatives.
Yes.
I just wanted to quickly also just so we're all on the same page, because you made a distinction between humanitarian situation and condition. Can you just quickly tell us what's the difference
Okay.
between situation and condition?
Yes. The situation is about the time frame work.
Okay.
So a situation, just there is a war, a crisis happened, and just let's move on, rebuild and move on. But then you have the condition, the humanitarian conditions. We're saying, this is conditions are permanent. So we are not actually in alleviating suffering. We are about living with suffering and make it bearable somehow. Which means that there is no view that the situation going to change. There is no view that the refugee camp is not a normal living space. It speaks to the foreclosure of politics. To imagine, just could we move beyond this? Say, we have humanitarian conditions, and we're going to adapt. The idea is here, which is really not to change, is to adapt.
So it's so interesting, because I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about, there's frameworks in place, but it really is about how does it apply locally, even things like MDGs, SDGs. It's good intentions, but how is it actually implemented, which makes the difference?
Yes, yeah. Look, I will give another example. Look, and I said, because I talked about my starting point, I'm from Palestine. So the Palestine received in the past, since the 1990s, I think the highest humanitarian aid ever. And as you know, we see the results right now. It's not leading nowhere. And part of the projects which was administered by the US aid is a water management project. And this water management project was based on getting Palestinians to use water differently in the West Bank, to have different strategies of extracting water. And that's what you look at the project, it's a fantastic project. There is one fact ignored in this, that underneath the West Bank is all the water reserves for the whole of historical Palestine, which include modern day Israel. And Israel takes 83% of the water and leave Palestinians 13%. This is the problem. There is no shortage of water. What the shortage is that Israel is taking Palestinian water, and to maintain the status quo, the humanitarian condition, let's say. The US aid is saying, what do? You manage how you use water, just to make sure you recycle your water. This is your own problem. You responsibilize you.
And I think this is the challenge, right? Is we've got different projects and intentions to support the context or the situation that people are in, but it's almost reiterating the political status quo
Yes.
that is happening in space and place, which is the challenge, right? We can go and say we're providing aid and development, but you're only reiterating a status quo that's not helpful for local populations. Yeah.
And reinforcing also the dominance, that narrative of dominance.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is a good segue to our third and final section to our conversation, which is to disrupt. So we're now going to look to you to come up with a challenge as to how can we change based on the conversation that we've had today, but how can we do things practically different moving ahead, knowing what we know from the topic area of humanitarian aid and development?
Okay, yes, I have a challenge for you.
Ooh.
Could you identify, look for, and failure?
Ooh. Wow, I love that.
Can we Google?
So how do we look for or identify unfailure?
Unfailure.
Do you want to go first?
No. No, I'm trying to buy time.
Okay.
So, please give us a formal definition of. Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So unfailure. So for me, coming from a Pacific Indigenous heritage from Fiji, unfailure for me is recognizing the strengths, the capabilities, the capacities found in First Nations knowledges in the Pacific, and utilizing those First Nations perspectives and practices, views and values to develop our countries in a way that is helpful, that is reflective of our traditional practices and processes, whilst also understanding, yes, we do live in a society or a global community that has all these other elements around capitalism and neoliberalism. But it's important that we can integrate these particular things. I'll give you a practical example. So health, when we're talking about health, we need to include Pacific Indigenous perspectives in health services to further support our health outcomes in a holistic way. So there might be certain traditional ways of dealing with our well-being that a Western medical model fails to actually address and include. And if we don't have that as part of what we do, like for example, being in our own villages and connecting to land and feeling like they're part of a community rather than an individualized approach to care, then we feel like we're part of community, and that's a healing process for us to be part of our families and our community. Whereas in a lot of Western medical approaches, it's all about the individual, and I'm going to treat you with medicines alone and not actually understand the holistic context of your well-being. So what I'm basically saying is we need to go back to the way in which we as Pacific Indigenous people celebrate health from a holistic point of view, rather than pathologizing it, medicalizing it, to the detriment to our inability to actually thrive beyond our situations and circumstances.
That's a great answer, but also I have one comment. Rather than
I'm already getting reviewed.
Rather than going back, going forward. Okay.
Oh, I like that. So not saying going back to what we knew, going forward with what we know.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. You're taking notes,
I'm taking
aren't
notes.
you?
I'm scared.
Because language matters, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
So going forward with our knowledges. Oh, I love that. This is why I love sitting in these spaces. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Happy.
Okay.
No.
I have notes because while you were answering, I had so many ideas. Okay.
We're going to keep these pauses for the podcast.
Yeah, delete this.
No,
edit
don't
this
keep
out.
it.
Yeah,
Keep it.
So I think coming from, so I moved to Australia from the Philippines, and I'm so used to hearing that language of dominance of Western countries coming to the Philippines like they're the experts, like they know better. I'm so used to it. I've been in the receiving end of it, of hearing these people with all their big ideas and then saying, yes, we're gonna save you now with our nice bright ideas. And so for me, it's about the language. Like we were talking about how powerful language is, and for myself, I think the challenge is really being mindful of this language. So for example, when we hear the word expat, I actively refuse to use that word. I'm like, you're not an expat, you're a migrant, or you're someone from another country coming here. I'm not gonna give you a higher status just because we've gotten used to words like that, right? So it's like, why do we make that distinction between expat and migrant? I'm like, no, you're all migrants. We're all visitors in this country. We're all, we weren't born here. And then another thing is the word, you mentioned it a while ago, and it really resonated with me. Resilience. This is a big trigger word. This is a big trigger word for Filipinos. Every time we go through a storm, people are like, oh, we celebrate Filipino resilience. And there has been a conscious effort with activists in the Philippines now who are like, no, stop calling us resilient. We are not resilient. This is a product of your inaction. This is a product of your failure. And to me also, resilience has this sort of connotation of it's passive. It's like something is done to you. So for me now, instead of saying resilient, I'm like, I will use the word powerful or strong. So Filipinos, yes, resilient, but to me that means Filipinos are powerful and Filipinos are strong. That there's power in that, and there's strength in that. Because again, trying to disrupt that narrative of dominance. Like why are these aid workers from USAID the one seen as the strong one? You can tell that I have gone through things. That's another episode, because this is a PG. And then another thing that I do also, just in terms of language and the conscious effort that I make, when people say natural disasters, there's a conscious effort to call it's a man-made disaster. It's not a natural disaster. This was because of somebody's carbon emissions and greed. And then also, how there's this thing about, now at least they're acknowledging the importance of lived experience, but that wasn't always so like, people would always just say, oh, you went to this university, you have this degree, therefore you're an expert. And to me, lived experience is a form of expertise, and I will be conscious of that also in my language, that equating the expertise and intelligence in people's lived experience. And this one, I'm sorry.
You see, she's very passionate about this topic area, right? Very passionate, people.
Yeah, this is my jam. And then lastly, I think this is something that I've done here in Australia. Also, just making an active effort to read things that are not from the Western canon. Or like when I read an article, I'm like, okay, who's the writer? And if it's from the usual suspects, I will not read it. I will find something else written by people from underrepresented countries or
like
or the
BIPOC authors, like
Yes,
Black Indigenous
exactly.
people of color authors. Yeah.
Absolutely. And making that an active, like, surely there's, we will see the more, like in I guess like in mainstream media, we will see things that are not necessarily by BIPOC authors, but for me, I will make that and check, like Google their names. I'm like, are they BIPOC? Okay, yes, I would read this.
Yeah, you can tell she's very passionate about this. Can you tell also that she possibly might have, well, this is the thing, can you tell that she possibly might have a play coming out about this topic area?
Yes, actually. Am I going to plug?
You can plug if you want. But I want to hear from Dr. Ihab about what he thought about your answer.
Look, I think this is a great answer. And again, it takes me back to where we started this conversation about starting points and standpoints, So because when I talked about starting points are important because the way you start something, you launch it. It is about authorizing what comes out of it. So acts of beginnings are the most important things. Okay, just when we begin. So you are starting from a beginning. Okay, we say, look, I need to have to see alternative point of view. I want to see things differently, and you want to see things differently because you have different standpoint yourself, and the things are as they are not speaking to your experience or the experience of people that you know.
Amazing.
Actually, I want to hear your answer.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes. Let's do that because we can
Yeah.
include that in. Yes.
Okay. About unfailure.
Yes.
Well, look, I as I said, okay, this article I wrote called "Political Economy of Liberation" is about okay, just answering this question of unfailure.
Okay.
That we had legacies, or had people who did a lot of work. It never materialized to something, but it never materialized not because of it is inner failure, rather because the circumstances, the political circumstances around it, meant okay, just these projects are not going to materialize. Yes, just this article essentially is a meditation on unfailure.
So
Wonderful.
We'll wait for that, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Definitely. So who won? I'm joking.
Yeah. Clearly me.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. However, yeah, let's plug your play.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
okay. So I wrote a play about this. So I used to work in the development sector in the Philippines. In the anti-corruption space. So it's very funny when I was talking about all these Westerners coming to the Philippines telling us about corruption. I'm like, excuse me, we invented plunder. Don't tell me. Don't tell me how to do this. So it's based on that experience. My play is called Savior. And it will be it's programmed for the Griffin Theater 2026 program. So if you're available,
Of course,
you're gonna be there opening night.
Okay, thank you.
Challenging people. So opens May 2026, Griffin Theater, Savior.
That's amazing. Do you know what else is amazing? You're amazing. Thank you so much.
You guys.
It's been wonderful having this conversation with you today for our third episode in Decolonise Me. I'm going to encourage people to follow your work and also to reflect on the question posed around how we understand unfailure and looking at from a critical point of view, this idea of, I love that, the future as we move ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys. I enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
You've just been watching the Decolonise Me podcast, hosted by Jioji, Ravulo, and Happy Feraren. For more details about the topics discussed, please see the show notes and follow us on all social media platforms.